Hello, I'm Allison McCauley, and I want to extend a warm welcome to everyone that is joining us today. I am absolutely thrilled to be your host for today's discussion, where we're going to focus on contact center quality assurance and coaching. And today we get to dive really deep into a transformative journey. It's a transformative journey of Oportun, which is a mission-driven fintech. It's instrumental in helping over 2 million members to get to a brighter financial future through intelligent borrowing and saving and budgeting strategies. And our conversation today is going to center on a pivotal shift from traditional and reactive quality assurance to a more dynamic and agent-centric coaching model. And we're going to dig into how Oportun has reimagined really the use of AI to make it possible to empower agents and add to their capabilities to really forge a deeper connection with customers. So as we get into it, we're going to explore how this was a paradigm shift. We're going to talk about how it was an internal mindset change, about how it was a move towards proactive agent development, about how it really leveraged conversational AI and behavioral modeling. So we're going to get to explore how this was not only a strategic transformation that really made a difference in the business, but also get into how this is an opportunity really to unlock human potential. So I'm excited and anxious to dive into this journey and talk about the discovery, the learning, and the evolution that happened. And we're going to be able to do so with two thought leaders. So I'll be introducing them in a minute, but first, I really want to thank Cresta. Cresta sponsored today's discussion and made it possible. Now I get to introduce our speakers. The first speaker I'd like to introduce to stage is Veronica Semler. She is the visionary Vice President of Member Servicing at Oportun. Hello, Veronica. How are you?
I'm doing great, Allison. How are you?
I'm wonderful, and I'm so excited that you're here. You've been such a catalyst to this really innovative approach to QA and leveraging AI. And I really can't wait to hear more about how that has really improved the interactions with agents and customers and overall outcomes.
Thank you, Allison. I'm excited to be here as well. I'm excited to share and just very honored to be able to share our story and the journey that we've been on.
Fantastic. Okay, I'm going to bring Adam Walton on stage too, because Adam's also going to be sharing his perspective. Hi, Adam. How are you?
Hey, Allison. I'm doing great. Thank you. How are you doing?
Good. I want to introduce you to our audience. You're the Chief Customer Officer of Cresta, and you have an incredible wealth of experience in customer engagement technology, and particularly in this next evolution of customer technology. And I really in our previous calls, I was really interested in how your perspective on the interplay of strategy and technology really can make a transformative path for the contact center come to life. So I'm interested in this conversation.
Thank you very much. And hey, Veronica, great to see you.
Great to see you too, Adam.
Look forward to the discussion. We always have good discussions.
Yeah, happy Valentine's Day to everyone.
Yes, and happy Valentine's Day. I was thinking a great place to start, as I was thinking, where do we start this discussion? I was actually hoping that Veronica, you could kick us off and take us to the space where, before you made this change and help us understand what are some of the initial challenges that Oportun was facing in QA that prompted exploring a shift. Could you take us to that time and walk us through that?
Absolutely, Allison. And just an incredible question. So looking back with QA, what we really found is it required a significant amount of resources, right? And in order to be able to mitigate the risk. And what happened is we have, these checklists, we have these requirements that we needed to meet to make sure that our contact center teams were definitely following. So what happened is that we ended up having to, have our business partners as well as a QA team. And in combination, we were using resources on the business side and within operations, and then also our QA team to just have this oversight. And it was a sampling approach, right? So there's still a lot of risk that was, existing as we went through that. It was just an inefficient process. We had a lot of customer information, but because we were so the data was set up in a way where it wasn't consumable, it made it very difficult for us to focus on how do we identify what our customers are saying, what our customers need, and then also what our team members need, right? So it's a balance of both, right? And so what we found is that we were looking at the end state versus really taking a step back and saying, okay, if we focus on our team members and helping them to provide the tools that they need, what, would that drive the experience a little differently? And how could we leverage the information that we had within QA that was being captured that was just really going unused because we didn't have the manpower to go in there and data mine, and really drive the behaviors, that we needed ultimately.
So it's almost as if you had all this content, material, resources, but you couldn't tap into it. You couldn't unlock it.
You got it, Allison. That's exactly it. And so it's basically data that goes sit there, right? And, it's incredible to have data, but it doesn't serve any purpose if you can't use it or data mine it, right? What do you do with it? And what a powerful tool it could become, which is what we really found with Cresta, right? So as we ventured into Cresta and as I started to think about, the team and I, we started looking at how do we make this more efficient, right? What are the tools? What are the platforms? Our team went through a process of reviewing several vendors, taking a look to say, okay, what are the different platforms? Which one is going to really align with our vision of what we're looking for? And, the biggest piece was really challenging what we had today. And so as we went through it, Cresta just automatically rose to the top. Just an incredible platform that has really just helped us solve so many different pieces. Right? We were completely inefficient. And so what we found now is we have a 50% reduction in our workload. So as of end of year, we were at 46, we're up to a 50% reduction in workload just within our QA team. And then in the business, they're no longer doing QA. So we went from the sampling approach to now 100% QA. Every call is QA.
50% is a huge number. Adam, I'm hoping to pull in your perspective, going back to that early stage. You and Veronica have started working together on this quite early. And so I feel really lucky I get to get your perspective on that moment too, and what you saw as the need for change and the real opportunity that was in front of Oportun.
So there were a number of things that were different about Oportun, and I think have led to such a successful journey. I mean, first of all, there was a big vision driving this whole initiative. There was a belief in what was possible and a commitment to what was possible. So there was no timidity for the whole Oportun leadership team. We always sensed that we were on a journey together, and partnership is crucial for implementing this type of technology. There was a recognition of we don't know what we don't know. So we've been through multiple loops of investigating the data to do discovery, to understand really where are the opportunities for improvement, then using the Cresta platform to drive those improvement changes, then analyze the results, and then starting that process again. So a process of ongoing continual improvement. But I think it's crucial that I use the phrase learning partnership. That's our most successful customer relationships, where we both agree we're going to work together. We don't have all the answers, but we're going to learn together in a very fast, rapid, agile way. And the final thing I would say, and this is particularly relevant in the area of quality assurance, which I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more, drill deeper into. But the last thing I want to hear a customer say is, this is what we do today. Can you just automate this? Because I know that is missing so many opportunities to just transform the whole process and the impact it can have on the business. So what was so refreshing about Veronica and her team was, to use her word, they were challenging their assumptions right from the first moment, and therefore we were able to say, okay, what is now possible that wasn't previously, and how can we, again, to borrow Veronica's phrase, how can we reimagine how we run this process?
You know, Adam, it strikes me because we're talking about technology, but what you zeroed in on was the human dimensions behind this to enable this and that make it successful. So I think that's going to be a really interesting thing for us to dive into. And the other thing that really comes to light too is when you talk about learning partnership, it also highlights the fact that this is, this is a very quickly evolving space. And so that collaboration is a really important thing to optimize. I mean, that's just what's really coming out and what you're saying. I think that's really strong.
Yeah, just to emphasize that. I mean, first of all, contact centers are very human places. And I think will continue to be human places for a long time. Clearly, there are opportunities for automation, and that's a part of our mission at Cresta as well, to leverage those opportunities. But ultimately, the most important, the most challenging, difficult conversations are probably going to be human to human for a long time. So I try to, the way that I state it is we take smart technology and we use it to solve messy people problems. And I don't know if Veronica would relate to that phrase, but operating a contact center operation is a lot of messy people problems. So at that level, that's definitely the case. But also when you look at any technology project, if I've learned anything in my years in this world, it's the platform has to be able to deliver, but it's only one of three critical success factors. One is the team that Cresta can bring with their expertise, their guidance, their enablement, their support, and even more importantly is the leadership, the change management, the motivation to learn and change that comes from the customer side. So if any one of those three components is missing, the project won't come close to fulfilling its potential.
Veronica, does that resonate with you?
Absolutely. I was just going to say, Adam, fully aligned. And, I think the biggest piece is, as Adam mentioned, and Allison, you mentioned on the human aspect side of things, right? So for me, and for the team, one of the things that can be very challenging is that you're trying to challenge the status quo, right? And so when I came to Adam and the team and said, okay, we want to be disruptive, right, in a really good way. QA has been done the same way. I've been in the industry for a long time. It hasn't shifted. It's one of the things that hasn't really evolved. And Adam and I had this, I think we talked for about an hour, where we had just this incredible conversation. And he wasn't he wasn't like fearful of the things that I was saying. If anything, he was very much aligned. And, and we both were able to just be incredible thought partners, right? And just have those discussions around, okay, what has been done? Does it really make sense? How can we improve that, right? How can we change the way that we're using information? And that's been, I think, one of the most critical parts as we've gone through this journey. If we hadn't been able to have those types of conversations, and I hadn't been able to have a thought partner on the other side that was open to hearing these ideas and not being concerned about challenging the status quo, but instead embracing it, we wouldn't be here, right? And we wouldn't have been able to make the changes. So it did require both Adam and I to be like, okay, we're going to challenge the status quo. How do we do this? How do we move forward? And how do we create something better, right? Different, and how do we make focus on our teams, on people, right? Whether it's our employees, or our members. How do we really take that platform to do that? And so each time Adam and I connect, we end up going on a tangent. We have to put ourselves on a limit because the ideas start really flowing, which is an incredible thing to have.
It's so inspiring in this mindset or approach, or whatever angle we frame it in, just feels so important in this moment. I do want us, I want to talk more about challenging the status quo. I think you brought that up, Veronica, and I think it's something when we talked before, I heard from both of you. So I do want to dive into that. But first, before we do so, Veronica, I actually want to dive a little bit into the technology in terms of, so AI has been around for a while, but evolving extremely rapidly over the last 18 months or so. And so I want to ask you, we talked earlier about your challenges that you faced and what you hope to do and what possible you hope to unlock. Why did you turn specifically to AI? Could you give us some grounding in that?
Absolutely. So, again, going back to challenging the status quo, right? AI is something that hasn't, really been leveraged from a QA perspective. And what we're finding is because it is moving so rapidly, Allison, people are, you have two spectrums. You have the people that are just adopting it and moving full force. And then you have the other group that is going, wait, we're not ready for all of that. And so for me, as I thought about that, it's like, okay, you have the automation piece that would be a benefit, right, from an efficiency. It would help us to mitigate the risk, which is the most basic need of a quality program, right? And then the other piece was, how do we take this information and how do we start to pull data and extract customer sentiment so that we can start to drive and deliver what is really needed ultimately versus us guessing, right? So a lot of times we're guessing what our customers need and want. We're guessing what our team members need and want. This platform, right, or AI takes the guesswork out of that. It gives you the data, the analytics and the information. And then with Cresta, what really helps to make them unique is that it presents it in a consumable fashion so that you're not spending hours upon hours data mining or having to submit, different requests. So the biggest thing was really being much more efficient, but then also how do we impact our team member morale and how do we improve our customer experience all in one, in one fell swoop versus having to parse it out and trying to achieve it through several different platforms to get to the same place.
So it's also the ability to work with one platform to accomplish so much is what I'm hearing.
That is correct.
Okay. Well, I want to go more into this theme around challenging the status quo, because I think that was the mindset that enabled you to get to where you are. And, we really do also want to dive into QA in particular. So I'm going to tie the two together and ask you, I want to ask you both about, how does this so different from traditional QA? So I'm hoping they could both talk about how you think about that and why it's so important in this particular moment in the contact center, and what that really means. Veronica, would you be willing to start off on that?
Absolutely. So I love this topic. So this is actually the first topic that Adam and I discussed. And so the way that the conversation really started, Allison, was a punitive program versus a proactive program, right? A program that delivered growth mindset. And so the programs today are very punitive. When you go to a contact center and you ask employees about QA, they talk about how their performance is impacted, or they get a potential write-up, or they get this zero score, they get this failing score. They talk about how their incentives are impacted. They talk about all of the harm, right, that comes to them. But what you don't hear about, I learned something. I was trained. I was able to become better from a QA program. And so what we've done, through the leadership team, and because Cresta, the platform, has enabled us, and because of the openness of the leaders like Adam in the organization, we now have an achievement program. We no longer have a QA program. And so what we've done is we have an achievement program that now focuses, obviously we have those pieces that are regulatory that still have to be measured today. But then outside of that, it's now about how do we teach our team members? How do we coach? And this is where that culture shift that you mentioned earlier in the call, right, how does that work, right? Because we had to go back and through our leaders say, okay, we're shifting the change, right? We're no longer here to check boxes, right? We're no longer here to just make sure we got our X number of calls scored and move on to the next one. It's now a partnership. And we've extended it to the point where our achievement team now is held accountable as well for performance. So, you still have to get your certain number of, they don't actually do the reviews because Cresta does 100% of the reviews for us, but they do review just to double check to see if there's any challenges. There's still an aspect of it there. However, their primary focus now is to coach, to teach. So part of their performance metric is, okay, did I help this team? Did I help this leader? Did I help these team members improve in their performance? And so as we shifted the way that we, implemented in our approach, what we found is that so did our team members. And so what we're finding now is our agents are in there and they are proactively going into Cresta. They're proactively finding areas of opportunity to improve, as are the leaders. So this culture shift has just really started to go, but it's kind of one of those things, right? Someone has to go first. And so, from an achievement perspective, we were able to go first and make that happen. And we're really just seeing everybody embrace. We're going to coach, we're going to train, and we're going to work to improve and to help our team members, be the best performer, be the best that they can be in that particular role. Adam, I don't know if there's something else you want to highlight. What did I miss?
There's obviously you covered the really important stuff, but as you know, with this topic, there's so much. And I think everyone on this call probably who's been involved in contact centers know what the QA process traditionally was. And I say traditionally as if it's a thing of the past. It's still the norm in most organizations that you'll be selecting mostly at random, maybe a handful of calls per agent per month, and you'll be scoring against maybe 20, 30 different items. And the objective of the exercise is to come up with a score. But it's very clear that that score will never be representative of that agent's performance. Because if they do, I'm making the number up, 1,000 calls in, many more in some environments, but let's say they do 1,000 calls in a month, to base their evaluation on a handful of those calls, is very unfair, and that's obviously the most common pushback that you'd get from an agent. So it doesn't seem relevant to the agent as a way to help them. It feels like an unfair process that's happening to them, and that sucks energy out of agents who are already in a really challenging job. Being a modern contact center agent is an extremely challenging thing to do with the amount of change that we have going on and the new things they need to be learning all the time. So to move to a situation where we can be understanding, again, I prefer the word understanding rather than scoring, because scoring human beings on how they interact in a conversation is a slightly strange concept, and maybe not a helpful concept. So to understand, based on 100% of calls, what are the learning opportunities for this individual agent that just transforms this to a process where the agent can understand this is something to make me more successful, to help me feel better about my work, to achieve more of my bonuses. So I only found out a week or so ago, Veronica, that you'd actually changed the name from QA to Achievement Program. But I think that is so powerful and represents what I know you were doing with the program, but to actually rename it in that way is incredibly powerful. So I think, just to wrap that up, I think the personalization that it now enables, the fact that you're not applying a standard scorecard to everybody. And I know you need to do that from a compliance point of view, where there are binary things where you either do them or you don't. But what's most important is, are the agents more effective at delivering what the customers need? And that's all about coaching.
So Adam, I want to actually dive a little bit more into this, you have a unique perspective in that you get to work with so many different organizations, and we've talked about how important it is to have this new mindset, and that is an incredible story with the name change and everything that represents. That is very powerful. You've said that really well. What advice do you have for organizations that, and for leaders specifically in organizations that see the importance of challenging the status quo, but that's hard work. So what advice do you have for them to move along that journey to bring the rest of the organization along, the rest of the leaders in the organization along to that?
Change management is crucial, good change management. The understanding that ultimately for most of what we're doing, someone is going to be doing their job in a different way, whether it's an agent, a supervisor, or a contact center leader. So employing good change management, ensuring everyone understands why we're doing what we're doing, how things are going to change, ensuring that communication is really important. Focus is really important as well, because the nature of a contact center operation and a platform like Cresta is, we could literally, and Veronica, keep me honest on this, we could literally have started in 30 different places with 30 different things that we could probably change. And hopefully over the next couple of years or so, we're going to keep ticking off all these different things. But having a clear strategy around what's most important, where do we start, what do we do first, and then bringing that learning mindset that we talked about earlier, I think is crucially important. Understanding that bringing in new technology, which is bringing new data, learning how to operationalize that so that people become more effective at what they do, that's part of that change management process we talked about. It's not straightforward. We're not going to get it right first time. So we call it agile mindset. Let's do something together. Let's learn from what worked and what didn't, and then let's do the next thing and continue to learn as we go. So that idea of the learning partnership is really important. I won't name him, but a really strong thought leader in one of our other customers, and a gentleman called Will, said about a month ago, he said, Cresta is not a solution that you turn on and it transforms everything. He said it's a discipline. Now that we understand that it's a discipline, it imbues everything we do in our operation. Now we're really leveraging the power of Cresta. I thought that was a very articulate way of expressing it.
That's beautifully said. Veronica, I want to get your perspective on how to know where to start. As Adam brought up, you could have started in 30 different places. So why QA? Like what helped you zero in on that could help others who are facing this understand where they start?
It's a great question, Allison. I think the biggest piece about QA, right, is that it gives you access to data around human behavior, human sentiment, human needs, and human wants. Right. And so once you have that data and once you have that information, now you can go in to say, okay, what are the needs of the organization? And what is, how do I build a strategy around this? Right. Where are we looking to really target? And what are we looking to achieve? And what happens is that now you have data that you can use to quantify and support. Okay, we need to pivot within step 5. So, you may have a process that has, 10 steps. But we generally don't have enough data or information to say, okay, do we need to remove step 5? Do we need to modify step 5? Do we need to, take it down to 7 steps instead? And so by having QA and having that data and that information, one, it frees up resources, right? So that you can have individuals that are dedicated to going in there to looking at those analytics and digging into the information and looking at it from a human perspective. right? And then from there is, what are you seeing? What are you hearing? What are the people saying, right? Whether it's your internal customers or your external customers, what are they saying? And how do you now drive change with that? And so a lot of times what happens is we have a tendency to go, here's the key performance metric, and we start backwards, right? We start from the key performance metric and then try to change everything to try and achieve that performance metric without really understanding the information, versus taking a step back, looking at the information and then saying, this is the right key performance metric, right? And so, it almost requires us to reverse engineer our thought process. And so with QA, it really empowered us with the information that we had, so that we can start to really drive change in the right places, make it very intentional and very purposeful.
So, what I'm really interested in too is bringing this to life for our listeners in terms of how this is different in somebody's life on the team. And so I think everyone's familiar with the before state, but could you walk us through what is now possible, what this end state looks like, or not end state, because there's no end state, right? It continually it improves and evolves, but like the current state looks like today with this solution in place. How's it different?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's no end to it, right, Allison? A growth, that's just what growth is, right? I think, I did roundtables, right? And as I was going through, I did roundtables with agents, with the leadership team, and just the different users that are currently leveraging the platform. Because to your point, where are we today, right? Do they like it? Do they not? What are they seeing? And the feedback has been just incredible. The feedback has been, I feel empowered. I'm able to go in and learn. If I'm on a call and I can't remember if I did something, I have the ability to automatically go in while I'm still on the call and go, I missed a step, and then go through and give the information. The other one was from a customer experience perspective. Sometimes customers speak really soft, or you can't really hear them or make out the words. Because I have the transcription, I'm able to review it, and I don't have to ask the customer to repeat the information because I have it right in front of me. I'm able to pick up and just keep going. So the level of empowerment for our agents has just been amazing. They're really embracing it. We have a team, because we're doing a pilot. Well, it's not a pilot, but we have a control group, and so our control group is now saying, you know what, we want on Cresta, we want you to adjust our goals, because we believe that they are doing better than we are, and we are seeing that. So right now, with our English speaking, applicants, we've seen a 15% increase for those that are using Cresta versus those that are within our control group, right? So it's a significant lift that what we're seeing. Then you have the leadership team, and the leadership team is excited because now they have everything at their fingertips. They don't have to go dig. If you go into Cresta, I'm not sure how familiar people are with the platform, but you can have the call, you can have the transcription, you can listen to the call, and you have the sentiment. So it has the little happy faces, sad faces, stress faces. It has those there. And so now as a leader, if I want to go in and coach and I'm finding that one of my, my team members is struggling in an area, I can go pull their information and specifically look at their calls, and it'll tell me like, okay, they're consistently missing in these 2 steps, right? They're having a difficult time converting, and so then they can go in, they can pull in just those calls that didn't convert, and they can listen to just those calls or read the transcription, and they can go back and coach their team members specifically on that. And so what we're finding is the level, I think that the biggest piece, and to kind of sum this up, is the level of autonomy and empowerment that we're seeing just throughout the leadership team has just been incredible. And then from a driving change, right? So the leaders that are using the Cresta, they're, right now sales, they have a huge sales goal. And so they're like, okay, how do we leverage Cresta? where are the challenges? And so they've gone in and we've been partnering with them to make some adjustments within Cresta to help drive and say, okay, where are the opportunities? And so really that's three different levels, right? Within one particular process, our team members, our supervisors, managers, and then our executives that are going in. How do we use this platform, each driving towards a similar goal because they all want to convert, but how do we leverage the platform to help us achieve there? But it takes us back to a growth mindset, right, Allison? Because I'm learning, and how do I make myself better? How do I make my team better?
And it also, we talked earlier about human potential and unlocking human potential. And it just strikes me how this is changing the very nature of the job to be so empowering and especially at the front lines for team members, and how exciting that is. We talked also in the past about when we were talking about this call about attrition and impact on attrition. How do you think about that and how that's helping with attrition challenges?
Yeah, so what we're finding, so one of our highest points of attrition was our new hires. And so, new hires, a lot of information to learn. And then you're on a call, you're on calls just from a call center perspective. During the same roundtables, what we found, the feedback from our new hires was, I love Cresta. We've been able to get them out on the floor and starting to take calls much more quickly. They're much more confident. And so we are seeing a reduction definitely for our new hires because they have this platform and this tool that's helping guide them through their calls, right? And so instead of having to try to remember step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, they're most focused on the experience that we have there. The other piece that we're finding as well, and I'd have to pull the attrition numbers to see, where the reduction is as well. But, as we were listening to calls, one of the biggest complaints we had, and I think Adam, you might remember as well, was very robotic. Our team members sounded very robotic, right? Which is a morale impact, right, Allison? When individuals sound robotic, they feel like they're just, let me just say exactly what's there, the exact script. Let me get through this because I need to get my QA and it just kind of getting through those pieces. And so we listened to some calls, as early as last week. And that was one of the things that really resonated is the robotic pieces are gone. So what we're starting to see is from a morale perspective, right? Which the better morale is, your attrition starts to go down, right? And so as our team members are feeling more empowered, more flexibility to be themselves on a call, we're starting to really see those improvements. The new hires right out of the gate. Our existing team, that's where we're starting to, it's a little bit of a slower tide just because, we're almost at a year with Cresta, but we're definitely getting there.
So I have a question for you, Adam, because this is, we're talking about transformative journeys. And those are hard. And so, of course, there are challenges that come up when integrating AI. And I'm very interested because you have such a broad perspective and you're seeing so many organizations. What are you seeing as some of the emerging sort of early best practices at these beginning stages of the transformation journey to be able to do it right? You shared a lot with us earlier about mindset. What other, and also we talked a little bit about where to start, but how else, what other things are you seeing are important to be successful in that transformation journey at the first stages?
We didn't talk a lot about data discovery, but obviously one way to use machine learning, AI technology is to do really deep discovery on what are the behaviors in conversations which are driving the best outcomes. And I think the best contact center leaders have a good sense of that. And we definitely don't rely entirely on data because listening to the leaders running focus groups, listening to the agents as well, what they're actually experiencing yields hugely valuable information. But there's also no substitute for being able to understand what the math models, the AI models are telling us in terms of when you do these things in this sequence, then you consistently get better outcomes. So really committing to discovery early in the process, combining both data-driven with narrative-driven discovery, I think is really important. The other thing, which is a key theme for us with the Cresta platform is democratizing the AI. So bringing it into the hands of the customer and enabling them to self-serve with our guidance, enablement, mentoring, because it's one thing to be able to know how to do it. It's another thing to be able to learn how to do it well. Mm-hmm. But that's been a big drive for us at Cresta, and our platform is now very self-serve oriented. So customers can be owning the models going forward, because the one thing that we know is a constant is change. So the model that delivers great results now will be different in a year's time or even sooner. So I would say those are two of the important trends.
So how do I know if my organization is a fit for this, or would you suggest that you go through a discovery process to understand, and that's where you really get that feeling for whether you're ready and what you need to do to get ready?
Yeah, we can certainly help organizations to understand what's the opportunity for improvement and help to make those decisions. I pulled that figure of 30 things that we could do with the customer out of the air. It's directionally correct. Where's the best place to start? I love the agile question of what's the fastest, easiest thing we can do with the highest probability of success. We can work with customers if they can provide data for us. We can provide insight into what are those key behaviors that if you just started doing these two things more frequently, you would get much improved outcomes.
So is it that is it important to be able to know really what the best first step to make is? Is that something that there's some emerging philosophies around it's here? So for instance, it's around QA, or is it something where it's more of an explorative partnership to discover that?
It's definitely a partnership. And the other thing I would say is it's more important to make a decision and commit to that decision and to then execute quickly than necessarily worry about what is exactly the right decision. Because we know there are many different ways that we can transform and create value. Being focused and clear-headed around where are we starting and what do we learn from that and how do we measure results. We didn't talk about that. That's another key attribute of successful customers. Veronica mentioned that at Oportun we're running effectively an A/B test to be able to isolate the impact of Cresta, because the other fundamental nature of contact sensors is constant change in terms of the products, market, customers. So if you can't just compare what's happening now with what happened 6 months ago, because so much has changed in that period. To be able to isolate and really scientifically say, this is how Cresta is driving improvement, you have to think carefully about your measurement and test process. And having that level of credible measurement allows us to all be accountable for learning from what happens, because the information's there. It's telling us this is working, but this piece isn't.
So that whole area is something I would love to dive into, and so many others that we didn't get a chance to talk because this is such a rich area of exploration. But we're running out of time. So I'm going to have one last question for you. I'm hoping that you can give our listeners one last piece of advice as they look ahead to this opportunity. Adam, can I start with you? One last takeaway piece of advice for our audience.
It's difficult to say one. The one thing that we didn't talk about, which I think is really important, is thinking about the overall customer journey. So I think most contact sensors today, they may use the term omni-channel, they're actually multi-channel. I think what we all collectively need to do, and Cresta wants to play its part in this, is delivering a truly seamless, great experience for the customer across all channels. Because most customers these days are going to be multi-touch interaction, many touch interaction. And if we can use Cresta and the power of AI to ensure that journey is as rapid and as effective as possible across all of those channels, that's a shared goal we can all commit to.
That's a great topic for another webinar. Lots to dive into. Veronica, will you have the final word and give us the last piece of advice on how someone should face this opportunity ahead?
Well, going back to challenging the status quo, Allison, what I would say is challenging the status quo, quote, is difficult, but staying the same is much more difficult and very expensive. Now, for me, embrace it, right? Continue to evolve. And what that does is it fosters your own growth mindset, and then also for those around you, right? So being able to ask the questions and challenge each other on the way things have always been done is a great way for you as a leader, and then for those around you to continue growing and developing. And so, find a good partner that will do that. So I know we've definitely found a good partner through Cresta. Find someone that a platform that way, and a team like Adam and others that can definitely support you and are open to that innovation, the futuristic way of looking at things versus staying the same.
Well, those are inspiring words to end on. So we'll end there, except I have one last thing to say. I just want to give a shout of thanks to Cresta for making today's conversation possible. I want to thank everyone that listened in, and Adam and Veronica, thank you so much for sharing this story about your journey. And there's so much to think about here. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Veronica.
Thanks, Adam. Thanks, Allison. Thank you, everyone.